All right, so the theme of this week's guitar lesson is a great little acronym, which I love. I use this all the time in life in general, especially when it comes to music, and that is K.I.S.S, which stands for Keep It Simple, Stupid. It's a very kind of harsh sounding reminder, but it's a great reminder when it comes to playing lead. And that is to just keep it simple. You don't always have to be playing over the top or doing something impressive. Sometimes there's a place for that, obviously, but if, you know, when it comes to taking a lead break, I know that most of you are not professional musicians. And so if you're jamming with your friends or jamming in a group setting or whatever, and somebody says, hey, you want to take a lead break, the first thing that goes in your head is, I got to do something impressive. And so what ends up happening is you freeze and you kind of forget where you're at. That happens to everybody. But the thing that I like to remember is just keep it simple. It doesn't have to be over the top. In fact, the best phrasing is simple phrasing. And it's those little gaps in between what you play. So you do something and then you don't play. That's a hard thing to do, but hold back. And then you play something else. And it's those notes, or it's the gaps in between the notes. It's the notes that you don't play that are just as important as the notes that you do play. So all of that stuff is just stuff that you learn the more mature you get as a musician. You'll start to figure it out, and you'll start to see that your guitar heroes, they do that too. And that's where your professionalism starts to come into play. You start to sound much more professional when you can phrase and you can say something and then just play nothing. So this lead that we're going to be looking at has a lot of open space, a lot of that sort of not playing anything. And so we're going to kind of break that down. Actually, just in this one video, we're going to break down the entire lead. If you'd like to get the extra materials with this week's lesson, which is the MP3 jam track, the tablature, and also the on-screen tab viewer, which has the tab and the video on the screen at the same time, all those extra materials, you can get those by going to activemelody.com, go to the weekly lessons page, and do a search for EP563. Okay, so this song is in the key of D minor. It's very chill, kind of laid-back jam track. And when I was coming up with a lead for this lesson this week, I started off doing something kind of complicated. I was going to go into a whole different lesson idea. And then I thought, it just didn't sound good. And my job as a musician is to make the song sound good. You're always serving the song, and you have to remember that. And so I just started kind of doing some simple stuff, minor pentatonic scale, nothing technical. And it sounded way better than the faster stuff that I was trying to do. So I ended up making that the theme of the lesson, and it was a lesson to myself as well. So let's listen to the first little part, and then we'll break it down. Okay, so I'm starting with a chord. Actually, it's more of a rhythm. This, like the very first thing, I went like this. So let's look at that. That's a D minor chord. Now I'm barring here on the 5th fret. This is using the A minor shape. So a little reference back to the Cage system. When you bar on the 5th fret, these 3 fingers are making the A minor shape. You've got a D minor chord. There's my D note, right? And it comes in on the 2, so it's 1, 2, 3, 4. So the first time it's a downstroke on the 2, 1, 2, 3, and then the second one is on the 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. And then you lift your fingers to do that pull off, and that's the sound you're going for, is that. So it's like... All right, so here's a correction I needed to make to this video, and I didn't realize this until I was editing it. And what I played there was actually not a D minor chord, it was a D minor 7 chord. So either one are going to work, but I wanted to just make that point in case somebody was confused. So what I noticed I was playing was this. So you take your D minor chord and you just lift your pinky here, and you get a D minor 7. They both sound fairly similar. And you can get that same minor chord to a major chord thing with either one, but I just wanted to point that out. I'm going to leave the tab the way it is. I'm not going to make any changes to that because it does work either way. But what I actually played was D minor 7. Now, that's a nice little vamp. Here's your first little takeaway. When it comes to just, minor key rhythm, like when you're looking for fillers and what to do instead of just strumming the minor chord, this is a great one. I use it all the time, especially out of this A minor shape. You see this all the time in music. It's very common. It's in a lot of stuff. And what you're doing is you're playing that minor chord, and then when you play this, that's a major triad. And the way that I think about it is, if this is my chord, I go down 2 frets and play whatever that note is, play its major chord. And that's using the A shape. So that's a C chord. So it's my D minor and my C. And I'm basically able to vamp between those 2 chords. And those 2 chords are just going to fit together. They always play together really nicely in a minor key context. So that's the first little idea there. So, all right, so the next phrase goes like this. Now, what I'm doing is I'm playing D minor pentatonic scale. Just basic stuff. I'm up here in pattern 1. So this is my D major chord using the E shape. Lift my middle finger. There's my D minor chord in this position. Here's pattern 1 of my minor pentatonic scale. So when I went like this, that first little part of that, I'm borrowing the first 2 strings on the 10th fret. So I'm playing strings 2 and 3, and I do a hammer onto the 12th fret 3rd string. I love that sound. That's a great sound that works over a minor chord. So it's like, and then I come down to that 12th fret 4th string. And then the next thing I played goes like this. I got this from Chuck Berry. I saw him do this on the Hail Hail Rock and Roll thing where, you know, sort of behind the scenes, he was demonstrating some stuff and he was going, or maybe it was Keith Richards. It was one of the 2 of them. But anyway, I still use that all the time. I'm on the 12th fret, strings 2 and 3. I do a bend of both strings. So I'm pulling both strings. It's not as hard as it sounds. And you can do it real slow and chill like this. And then down to the 10th fret. And then we're going to go 12, 10, 12 on the 4th string. Now you can get a lot of mileage out of that lick. That's another one of those licks, like if you learn nothing else. Okay, so we have... All right, so after that lick, just wait, play nothing, and play. So that's a full bend on the 12th fret 3rd string. And then I hit the 13th fret 2nd string. You can see all of these notes are just minor pentatonic scale pattern 1. I'm not thinking about the chords. I'm just staying in the key right now. I'm just playing minor pentatonic stuff. Pretty much anything I play in minor pentatonic scale is going to work fine. So I'm going. So I hit that. And then I did, this is more of a David Gilmour kind of thing. I went. And I love the sound of this. It's really simple to do. This might be another little takeaway lick that maybe you've never tried doing before, but it's 13th fret 2nd string. We're gonna hold that note. I use my pinky for that. And then I'm on the 12th fret 3rd string, and I go ahead and bend like this. So it's a pre-bend. And then I play both notes at the same time. Now when I'm playing that, I'm picking on the 3rd string, plucking with my ring finger on the 2nd string. You don't have to do it that way. You could strum the pick. You strum it with a pick. You go. Either way. It just doesn't sound quite as clean and synchronized when you're using a pick, to my ear, as it does if you hybrid pick it like that. Index finger goes down to the 10th fret 3rd string. But isn't that a cool lick? It's kind of country, but it's also something I'm sure I've heard in Pink Floyd. And you can go the other way too. You can bend up. Or you can go down. All right, so I love this next phrase. It's a really cool one. It goes like this. And what I'm doing for that, I'm starting with this. It's a little stair step shape, which you've probably heard me say before, right? That's a minor triad. So I'm going to go 14th fret 3rd string, 13th fret 2nd string, and then 12th fret 1st string. So I hit those like that, and then I came up to the 15th fret first string, and watch this. This is a Jerry Garcia move. So each finger lines up over a fret, 15th fret, 14th fret, 13th fret, 12th fret, and I just picked it once, and I do a series of pull-offs with each finger. That took me a while to do, like to be able to do that. I'm still not as good as Jerry, but that's something. If you watch listen to Jerry's playing, Jerry Garcia, he does that quite a bit. So we start with that, and then back to the 15th fret, and then I go to the, I resolve that on the 13th fret first string. Now, the bigger thing, other than the notes, it's pretty easy to play, but where is that coming from? I mentioned that's a minor triad. Like, how the heck does that fit in? Because that's not a D minor. Okay, so here's what I'm thinking about when I'm doing this. This song is in the key of D. We're really in D minor. So if I were to play a scale, the best scale to use would be a D minor scale, D natural minor scale. So I'm just going to reverse engineer this for a minute, just kind of bear with me. So D minor is the relative minor of F. So that means if I'm playing the F major scale, I'm playing a D natural minor scale. I'm saying that because when I'm up here playing this, I'm playing the F major arpeggio. And I know that the F major arpeggio, which has all the notes of the F major scale, works perfectly over a D minor chord. So it's just one of those little things that I've memorized. I'll show you an easier way to think of it here, really. It's just more shape-based. Just remember, when you're playing a minor chord, you can take the relative major of that minor chord and play its arpeggio. And that's what this is. Right? And it sounds great. And it kind of sounds a little bit out of the box, but it's a really cool sound over that minor chord. The other way to think about it, which is more shape-based, is if I'm playing my D minor chord like this, using that E minor shape, where I've got these two fingers, I can put my index finger on that fret and just play that little stair-step shape there. And that's in that F major arpeggio. So I can just sort of connect that. That's how I do it. I don't always think about, I'm not reverse engineering this every time I play. Nobody does. We have little shapes and patterns that we've memorized. I just want to give you the theory behind it so that you understand what's going on. So then the song goes to a new chord. It goes to a B flat chord. Remember, we were just playing this. But when it goes to that B flat chord, I play this. Just to hit the notes out of the chord. It made my solo sound much more intentional when I did that. And all I'm doing is I'm arpeggiating, playing the notes out of this. Look at that. There's my little D-shaped triad, right? If I play it up here, this note is my B flat note. There it is, right? There's my B flat using the E shapes. So this is going back to the K.I.S.S system thing, but look, that makes perfect sense. That's why I'm able to play that and play it so quickly, is because, oh yeah, it's just a B flat. I can play it up here, right? I can keep going. And it's, it's coming out of that C shape. So now the song is going to stay on this B flat, and I'm going to come down to this B flat chord here using the E shape. That's where we bar on the 6th fret, and I'm going to play this lick. Now you can hear that flat 7, and I played it up here. And so I was kind of coloring it, even though the jam track wasn't doing that. I was adding those flat 7 notes in there to give it that kind of bluesy sound. So I went like this. So I went up to this note, which is the 3rd interval of the chord, 7th fret, 3rd string. And then we're going to go 6, 8 on the 2nd string. And then slide up to that 9th fret, which is the flat 7. And then I'm up here to the 6th fret, 1st string. And then we're going to slide it back down. And then I'm going to go. And then that last note is my 6th fret 4th string, which is another flat 7. So that whole lick, just picture it living kind of inside of this E shape. So now the song is going to go back to that D minor chord, and I just went like this. And let that ring out. I didn't do anything else. Now let me show you what I'm doing here. So my ring finger goes to the 7th fret 4th string. I slid into it. And then my index finger goes down to the 5th fret 2nd string. Now what are those two notes? Well, remember, we're playing over the D minor chord. And remember what I said, that you can play that F major 7 arpeggio. Remember? Because we did it up here. And so that's what I was thinking about. I was just remembering that idea. And so it's like I was already in this position. Oh yeah, I've got an F major 7 chord here. So I went and just hit those two notes out of it. And so I know that may seem complicated, but this is one of those things, like once you get this one concept that you can take your any minor chord and play its relative major or relative major arpeggio, you could just kind of work with that idea, and that's what's going on there. And now as the song hangs out on this D minor, I'm not really going to play anything flashy. I'm just going to go. And so that's the same thing we started with. That's a D minor chord using the A minor shape, and you just do the pull off, and I did, I think, 3 of them. And that, to me, that sound, actually, when I listened to it back, I was like, man, that sounds like something. And it's got that kind of Christopher Cross, what was that, Ride Like the Wind, you know, that kind of vibe. It's really kind of has that sound. But I wasn't intentionally going for it, it just sort of came out. So now the song is going to go back to my B flat chord, and I'm going to go like this to get us into that chord. This is kind of a John Mayer vibe. I'm not sure why I'm thinking of John Mayer, but it goes like this. Let's look at that. So we're going to start here playing that F chord, but using that little D shape, that little D triad, and then go into my B flat chord. Isn't that a cool sound? And the reason that works is F is the 5 chord of my B flat, right? So it's just a cool little transition, 5 chord resolving to its 1 chord. And then after that I went. So this is a little lick that you can connect to this E shape. So it's a major pentatonic lick. So I'm going to bar the first 2 strings on the 6th fret, do a hammer onto the 8th fret 2nd string, and then we're going to play strings 2 and 3, and do a hammer on to the 7th fret 3rd string. So we're really just building this chord, this triad. And then I came to that 6th fret 2nd string. And then since we've only been using 2 chords for the whole thing, I threw in another chord, which is the G major chord here. And so remember, we're in this position. So the song goes to a G major. So I asked myself, where's my nearest G major to where I'm at? This was the note I was just playing. And then I was like, oh yeah, I've got my G major triad, right? So I've got my G dominant 7 triad right here. Which is like the D7 shape, but I'm playing it up here. Ring finger and middle finger are on the 7th fret, strings 1 and 3. So I played it like this. Sliding into the 3rd string, and then 1st, back to the 3rd, and then 2nd. And then I came up here and went like this. This is another triad, another way of playing a G7. It's just a different voicing for it. But I've got my ring finger and my middle finger on the 10th fret, strings 1 and 3, and then I've got my index finger on the 8th fret, 2nd string. So you have, and all of that represents my G chord. But you can see that I wasn't doing anything complicated. It was just playing the chords, no scales. 3, 4, 3, 4, and then the song goes back to the D minor. So the song goes back to the D minor here, and I went right back to the minor pentatonic scale pattern 1 and played that leg. So what I'm doing for that is 13th fret 1st string, pushing that one slightly sharp, down to the 10th fret 1st string, and then we go down to the 13th fret 2nd string, back to that 10th fret 1st string, hit that note, and then bend up to it on the 13th fret 2nd string. And then I'm putting vibrato at the top of that bend as I get to the top of that note. That's a really difficult thing to do. It took me a long time to be able to do that. But if you don't, if you can't do the vibrato, that's okay. Just bend to the note. Or you can use a tremolo if you've got that. But I hit that note and I just held it. About that long, I don't know, while the chords kind of played on. And then I went, and that's how I concluded the entire lead. It was just another bend and release on the 13th fret 2nd string. Actually, it was a pre-bend release. Down to the 10th fret 2nd string, and then 13th fret 2nd string without the bend. So, and this is one of those notes, this is another little sidebar here, but when we're so used to our minor pentatonic scale, going through it, and we always tend to bend this note. It gets bent all the time, but sometimes it's great to just play that note without the bend. It sounds so nice. All right, well, I know that that's a lot of information, but just remember to keep things simple and don't beat yourself up if you can't come up with a lot of ideas. It's okay to just play a few notes. Or to just arpeggiate a chord, just play the notes of the chord. Little triad, or let it ring out. That's totally fine. Fill the space that way. It doesn't always have to be something that's just totally amazing. And sometimes some of that stuff, that simple stuff, sounds every bit as good, maybe even better than the other stuff. All right, I hope you've enjoyed this lesson. Leave a comment and let me know what you think about this. I always appreciate that. It helps me to gauge if this is resonating or if I need to change anything. If anything is confusing, let me know that too. Or if you just really enjoyed it, let me know. I appreciate that. Also, give me a thumbs up and a subscribe if you're watching this on YouTube. All right, we'll see you next week for something new.